Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the County Commissioners for September 27th to order. We have one announcement. The County Commission meeting is being video and audio recorded. Is there any public comment to come before the County Commissioners tonight? Is there any new business from board members? I'd ask you to approve the minutes of August 23rd and the payroll and treasury warrants for September 2017. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We do have two items of official business. One is request for execution of a quitclaim deed from the county to town for Lot 11B, and Andrew is going to walk us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. Behind you, you'll see a map. This is a fairly large parcel of land that the county commissioners bought in 1959. They bought this for beach purposes. This parcel is in the Moreland Management District, so it's in an environmentally sensitive area. And it also has, what you see there as Lot C is actually eroded away, so it has direct beachfront. The town's longstanding, or the town and the county's longstanding policy has been county assets are transferred over to the town. That became particularly important when there was discussion about dissolving the counties and taking all those assets and turning them over to the state. Obviously, this is an important piece of property. The town meeting has voted. The state legislature has authorized this transfer, and we'd ask for you to move forward with a deed of this parcel from the county to the town. Same purpose goes with that.
Any questions of Andrew? Anyone like to make a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Thank you,
Thank you.
Andrew. The next is a request for execution of a easement from the Nantucket Conservation Foundation between the foundation and Nantucket Electric Company. We approved the utility petition back in July. Anyone have any questions about that? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Thank you. Are there any commissioners' reports or comments? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're on to the Board of Selectmen agenda. We have one new business item that I just wanted to note at the beginning. They need to ask for a one-night extension on the nighttime construction on Vesper Lane for the sewer project. And I'll be recusing myself, so Matt will handle that vote.
Yeah, basically, they're asking to extend it tomorrow night, and at that point, they should be done, and they'll be on to days. They have been very responsive to the neighbors and to to Erica and the Board of Selectmen staff, town administration. I don't know if there's any issues. Have there been any issues with it?
A minor one that I think has been worked out,
So-
hopefully.
Yep, so if we'd like to extend it one night, I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's 4. All right, thank you. Back to you, Don.
Okay. And then the other change to the agenda is, let me just find it. We are moving.
Announcements, do you want me to go over? Announcements?
Oh, I'm just trying to find for the agenda, I was trying to just find which one we're moving. We're moving the funding for the Washington Street acquisition
Oh,
to
that's-
discuss it with the MOU.
That is Town Manager Report, item number 5,
That's fine.
10-5, X5. The last one.
Okay. So with those changes, we'll accept the agenda, and then we'll move on to announcements.
This meeting is being audio and video recorded in accordance with the provisions of the open meeting law. That announcement is to be made. I think we're going to get a very brief update from the sewer director about the Nantucket Harbor Shimo sewer project, where the work is now and where it's going next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. We're moving along in two spots right now. We have the one team on the McLean Lane area. They're moving along quite nicely down that way. A lot of undiscovered utilities and stuff that we're finding, but other than that, we're moving along very nicely. And the Vesper Lane project is moving along quite rapidly now. Getting through the intersection was quite interesting with what we came across, but things are moving along. We did over 100 feet last night, and if we can do another 100 feet or so tonight, we'll be just beyond the laundry, so we should be in really good shape. But no complaints. I've spoken to the neighbors, and it's gone very well so far. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, David. David also gave a nice presentation today at Rotary about this project as well as a couple of other sewer projects. So we're trying to really get outreach out there about what's coming up and what's ongoing right now. The Children's Beach boat ramp is going to be closed from October 31st through January 15th for repairs, and this is the environmental window within which we can make these repairs. So it does unfortunately coincide with commercial scallop season, but we're hoping that we can get the word out as best we can now so that people can make whatever arrangements they need to make to get their boats in. And we already did the noise bylaw waiver. So that's it for announcements.
This is the portion of the agenda for public comment. If there's anyone in the public wanting to discuss something that's not in the agenda, now's the time. Hearing none. We already handled the new business, so we'll move on to approval of minutes, warrants, and pending contracts.
I move with approval.
The minutes.
Minutes, all of them?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Approval of the payroll warrants and treasury warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Pending contracts, is there anything you wanted to point out?
I just wanted to point out, there's an amendment to a professional services agreement for DPW with Victor Brandon Corp., and it's a couple of amendments. It's adding a little bit to the contract, $5,600 for additional work, as well as, I guess it has slipped through the cracks that the contract expired on May 15th, 2017, so we are extending it to June 30th, 2018, and the significance of that date is simply the end of the fiscal year, and we expect the work to be done well before that.
Libby, I have one question, might be for DPW Director, on outdoor power, 3 lawnmowers for $30,000. Are those all 3 the same mowers, and are they the same mowers they're using at the high school? Which was something that happened a number of years ago, and was helpful.
No, these are not the same mowers.
They're all different ones?
They're all different mowers, and they're essentially yard mowers. They're not like large tractor mowers for fields.
All right.
Does that help?
But the 3 of are they 3 the same or 3 different?
3 similar, but they're different.
Okay.
Different sizes.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Someone want to make a motion?
I move approval of pending contracts.
Second.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, consent items. We have a number of real estate items. There are comments about them all in your packet. Did anyone have any questions, or do we want to do a blanket approval of these?
I didn't have any questions. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve all the consent items.
That's
I'd
1
second.
through 8.
Yeah.
1 through 8.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are on to citizen departmental requests. Now, is this where we should discuss the funding first? Okay, this is when we're going to take item 5 under the town manager's report and discuss the funding first for the Washington Street corner acquisition. In your packet, there's a couple of possibilities. We don't have a final estimate on free cash. And
So, Madam Chairman, just to quickly recap this, Article 9 of the special town meeting scheduled for November 6th would authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire a parcel of property at the corner of Washington Street and Francis Street for the purpose of widening that intersection as a traffic improvement. And there has been discussion about this acquisition between the land bank, the property owner, NISDA, and the town. And the intent is that, I don't know if we want to go into exactly what the funding program is, but it's a combination of funds that would be put forward by the town, the land bank, and a sort of a credit that the town would have with the land bank to complete the purchase. The town's cash portion would be $520,000. That would go towards the $1 million total of the acquisition for the town's portion. And the funding sources that the finance director and I have discussed include borrowing, and I'm not sure anybody wants to go through the borrowing process for $520,000, but it's a possibility. Free cash, which is not certified yet. We expect it to be certified within the next week or two. And there are a couple of prior year articles that have been approved already by town meeting, but which we have not yet spent, which could be made available through a reappropriation at the town meeting. We just need to understand that if we reappropriate those monies now, that we will need to reappropriate them later for the purpose that was originally voted. So those are, in 2015, $500,000 was appropriated for the establishment of Baxter Road alternative access. We have not used that yet. There's also a $1 million appropriation for improvements to the Boulevard, Lovers Lane, and Orkawa. There have been some expenditures out of the $1 million, but not a substantial amount. And in any case, that funding amount is not going to be enough in any event to complete that project. So there's going to be need to be additional funds appropriated anyway. So that's what we've come up with. I mentioned these possibilities to the Finance Committee yesterday at their meeting where they were working on motions to these articles, and it sounded as though they felt that they want to know what the proposal is, but they probably wouldn't have an issue with any of these.
So I'll jump in. First of all, just a comment. This is a project that was very time sensitive, and it was really a market opportunity for the town. And everyone came together collaboratively, planning, town administration, the land bank, and the owner. And from my view, it's very beneficial for all concerned. As to the source of it, source of funding, I'll just kind of jump in. With all of the storm-related issues we've been having around our country, and also on Nantucket, I'm a little wary of taking money from, a fund that's to be used for Baxter Road. I know, so I'm a little sensitive about that. But I wouldn't, that's the only, and I understand that would not be we'd probably ask the cost of borrowing, but that may not be the best way to use our resources. So reapportioning one of the other items, Lovers Lane and Boulevard, to me would make sense. But that's just one perspective.
Considering that Boulevard, Lovers Lane, and Okinawa will still need additional funding, and there will still be funding left if we take 520 out of that account, it just seems the most logical place to me to take it from and then work on reappropriating it in the not too distant future with additional funding to finish that project.
I'd hate to take it out of free cash because we
Yeah.
have so little.
No, I
you
think that
know,
this
yeah.
is the most logical.
Okay.
And I'd be worried about taking out of Baxter Road because there were,
I agree.
sort of promises and
Yep.
agreements implied.
Yeah.
And
you
it's
know,
not enough anyway.
Yeah, well,
It would
I mean,
have-
But
it's
it's a-
just,
it's a-
it's about the same, but,
Yeah.
you know, I think, but I'd be worried if it may have impacts there, so I wouldn't want to. I think you know, the Boulevard, Lover's Lane, or free cash would be the two I would want to.
And I mean, really, this project is time sensitive and really finishes off those three corners, because the other two have already been done that are critical to that truck route.
It's the last major,
It's a really exciting,
last major piece
thing
on the
to
truck
get
route.
done.
Sorry.
yes,
I thought
sorry. Talking over each other, go ahead.
It's the last piece on that truck route, Washington Francis all the way to Cumberland Farms. So I think it's smart to go with the funding from Boulevard, as long as we're committed to making sure it's back there, because that is an important piece over in that direction. But if we have
Yeah.
time,
I don't want to interrupt. Just to clarify, it says Boulevard, but it's Surfside area roads, and there's a project that involves the Boulevard, and that project is almost done, so this does not affect that. And then there are some other roads leading over to Monahans that would need to be done, and design is underway for that. And there is, in any event, as we've said, not enough money for construction anyway now, so there still needs to be a reappropriation, but the project would continue on.
So I would agree with everyone, especially the Baxter Road part, and leaving the funds there. So I'd make a motion to reappropriate the money for Boulevard, Lover's Lane, and Orkawa road construction.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Citizen departmental requests.
Thank you. The next item is the MOU between the town and the land bank, which is another critical piece of this. And I just wanted to say thank you to the board and to town administration and to Brian for putting all of the other pieces together. Planning really appreciates that. And again, as the board has said, this is the last of the three intersections that really needed the work. So thank you very much. Vicki Marsh is here to walk you through the MOU and give you some background, and I'm here to answer questions.
Good evening, everybody. So the memorandum of agreement between the town and the land bank was negotiated in order to provide the recreational parcels that will enable the town to construct the athletic fields at the new school. And so we have assembled from the land bank parcels a number of individual parcels which are up there, which have been approved by town meeting and then were approved by special legislation by the legislature for the land bank to be able to convey these parcels to the town. In exchange, the town is required by the special legislation to have a parcel of land which will be of equal or greater value and equal or greater size to that which is being conveyed from the land bank. So the town has proposed this parcel off of Washington Street, which is up in the map now, as a parcel, and the land bank has agreed that they would accept that parcel in exchange. So the land bank and the town have both had appraisals done, and as a result, the land bank's parcels have a lesser value than the town parcel. The town parcel is worth $480,000 in the appraisals, more than the land bank parcels. So in order to make up the difference, the land bank has offered to contribute the $480,000 to the town for its use in the NISDA parcel acquisition. So the memorandum of understanding that has been prepared by the Land Bank Council proposes that there are 3 conditions basically that need to be satisfied prior to being able to close on this. One is that we have to have an application filed for EEA, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, for their approval of the parcel that the town is putting up as consideration for this transaction. So that requires their specific approval. In addition, we need to have town meeting approval to be able to convey this parcel to the land bank for open space and recreational purposes, and their general land bank purposes that are in their Land Bank Act. And third, there are 2 parcels of the land bank subparcels which will require registration, and so that also needs to be completed, and the cost of those registrations would be done, shared equally by the town and the land bank. So those 3 conditions need to be met prior to us being able to proceed to close on this. And the closing date that's set in the memorandum of agreement is December 29th, 2017. In the event that the EEA, for instance, comes back and says that the town parcel is not going to meet their requirements and they won't approve of this transaction, we would then have the opportunity, by pursuant to this memorandum of agreement, to be able to come up with a substitute parcel and go back to get approval from EEA for that substitute parcel. So what we have built into this memorandum of agreement is an extension that would automatically be extended until January 31st, 2018. That would enable us to be able to hopefully complete the transaction by then.
What's the
Yes, ma'am.
likelihood of them not agreeing? It's a pretty substantial wetland, open space parcel.
I think that this has a good chance of being approved by EEA. I had spoken briefly in preliminary discussions with Bob O'Connor at EEA, and he thought that this parcel may be sufficient. But again, I can't speak for them. They would have to evaluate it. They're going to look at the maps and the environmental issues. The other thing that comes into play here is that the land bank is going to be putting up an additional $480,000. That was not in consideration at the time that the legislation was written. So I don't think that would adversely affect their approval, in my opinion, but I cannot, I obviously can't speak for them. But we have built into the possibility that in the event that does happen and we have to come up with a substitute parcel, we do have some additional time to do that. So that's basically the structure of the memorandum of agreement. The $480,000 would then be placed in an escrow account subject to an escrow agreement, and that's attached as Exhibit A to the memorandum of agreement. And so the key elements to the escrow agreement that I want to point out to you are that the $480,000 is to be used for the NISDA, specifically for the NISDA acquisition. And in the event that we do not close on that property by May 31st of 2018, and there's no additional extensions that have been negotiated, that the escrow funds would then go back to the land bank. So that's really the only key points. The rest of the escrow agreement, quite frankly, is fairly standard language. Do you have any questions or concerns? No?
It's all good.
Good. I do think that this agreement, the memorandum of agreement and the escrow agreement both cover, I think, what the town's goals are to achieve for both the land bank transaction and the NISDA transaction. Any other questions?
Sorry, Vicki, what was it? What are the EEA looking for again?
So the EEA requirements are what they call their no net loss policy. And so they require that the property, when you take a piece of property out of conservation or open space and you're transferring it, they require that a parcel of land be substituted for that parcel. And so the parcel that's going to be substituted must be of equal or greater acreage and equal or greater value in environmental issues as well as in, the appraised value of this property. And so I think that, without commenting on the environmental nature of the property that the town is willing to convey, certainly the acreage and the value, certainly meet those qualifications.
I think
'Cause
wetlands.
I'm pretty sure the town had an appraisal that was even a greater disparity than the land bank appraisal. And so I think the value certainly stands up, and I think the size stands up.
And, we certainly would, in the application process, so the land bank is the entity that will file for the approval, and I've asked that we include a provision in the agreement that would also allow us to review the application to make sure that, the appraisal is obviously duly noted in there, as well as the environmental quality of the property that the town is putting up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions, comments?
I think good.
Did you want to go over anything on B, C, and D? Or did you want us to take a vote?
Pardon me?
We'll vote on each one individually?
Okay.
Okay.
So I'd make a motion, we approve item A as outlined.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Okay. Then we have B, C, and D.
So, Madam Chair, the next item, item B under the departmental request. Here, we're asking for a confirmatory deed to property that's already been deeded from the town to the land bank. This is on Myacomet Road. It's basically shown on the map here as number 5 and number 9. So authority for this was voted at the 2013 annual town meeting. A deed has already been issued, and basically the request for the confirmatory deed, and this is part of another exchange of properties with the land bank, to add basically a missing word that's consistent with their charter, which I believe was recreational use. So it's open space and recreational use. That's a fairly simple request.
Any questions?
I'd make a motion to approve it.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. C.
The next item, C, on your agenda is the transfer of 3 parcels. These parcels are already protected open space, so it's not like these have any other use but open space. So that is a green belt, which is shown as parcel 1 on the map behind you. Parcel 3, which is, and again, this is Surfside Road here and Myacomet Road here. So basically, this is all treed and vegetative land. And then the last one is at the corner of Myacomet and Otokomi. Thank you very much. Again, those were purchased by the town for open space purposes, and they're being transferred to the land bank for open space purposes. The intent here is that the land bank will own and manage all the properties, basically, that are all contiguous, and probably do a really good job with it. So,
Quick question, are there any flooding issues on Otokomi near the pond or here? Are there any type of easements like that that we should be retaining as we give it? It can be recreation, but is there
Right.
anything like that we need to?
there is wetlands, Erica, if you go back one, but I don't believe that here there's a low area in the back here that's partially on land bank property and partially on the town property. But I don't believe there's anything here.
I'm sort of thinking of those roadways, are there sidewalk easements, or is there anything, have we looked at it, is there anything that we need to retain that if we give it away, we may not be able to get it back later?
Yeah, I know your point here on this, and I think we looked at this one pretty carefully, and I think the answer is no.
Okay.
Yep.
Just checking.
Okay.
I'd Make a motion to approve it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And the last item, Madam Chair, is for the town to simply accept the land that the county had earlier deeded over.
Okay.
A motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, moving into public
Public
hearings, there's 3 items that we're asking you to move.
So I'll open the public hearing.
Okay. These 3 items are, A, B, and C is what we're asking the board to move forward on tonight. These were authorized by vote of town meeting way back in 1999. These are purchases of land that have either unknown ownership or have had title problems. The intent of these is to purchase them as open space, so they're being purchased for open space, and the town will retain them as open space as of, per that vote. If there's anything proposed in the future, it would require subsequent action of town meeting. But tonight, these are purchase and keep for open space purposes. So item number 1 is a small parcel called, which is part of a second division of Peat Swamp. It's out in the Moreland Management District. It's shown on the map behind you. Peat Swamp shares were sold because the peat was excavated and used for commercial and heating purposes. And this parcel was owned by somebody in the mid-19th century. And again, we ask that the board move forward and declare the title here.
Okay. So will we close the hearing on these individually and vote? Or, okay.
Because you're going to be asked to continue.
Right, exactly. So are there any public comments on 1A? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Just a quick question. So these are open space per the town meeting vote. So it's a town meeting constraint, not
Yes.
a state constraint.
It's per the authority to move ahead on these was for open space, yes.
Yeah, through open space through the town meeting.
Right, and so once we've purchased them, they are protected open space moving forward.
Right. Now, if we wanted to change, the reason I'm asking, I know when we want to change the status of a land bank parcel, we have to go to the state to get the status changed.
Correct.
I'm not saying we change the status on the peat bogs, and,
Right.
we all know that.
Right.
But I'm just, as a general rule, if we wanted to change the status of these, we would have to go to town meeting to get voted the use for some other use, correct?
Right,
And then you would also need to. And then, in order to comply with Article 97, you would also need to go and have a special act that would also have to be done, because this is now going to be declared open space. So once it's been declared open space, even though it's not done by the state, it's still being held and used for that purpose. Okay. Now, if you want to change the purpose or you want to transfer it to somebody, another entity, say the land bank, you could do so. Again, you'd have to go to the legislature to do that.
Now, if we had voted these as we had voted these for all municipal purposes, then we wouldn't have that constraint.
Correct.
Okay.
And, I'm sorry,
Sorry,
I don't mean to.
that's
And so my understanding is that right now, these are being taken, they're going to be held by the Board of Selectmen. So ultimately, you can transfer the care, custody, and control to the Conservation Commission if you so desire.
Right, or to any entity that holds it.
Right, and if you're going to go and do that, then you would need a town meeting approval to do that.
I got you.
Okay.
And the reason I'm bringing this up, Andrew knows exactly why I'm bringing it up. But the reason I'm bringing it up is part of what happens in some of the negotiations, the land bank and other entities, is an evaluation. And if we take them as open space, their value is lower. So in the future, we may want to consider taking some of these that are not just open space ones, but that could be other uses, taking them in the potential of any municipal or other use. And then we have a higher value. So when we get in the position where we have to trade something that's equal size and equal value, we can't be told, well, geez, that's a little piece of, that's a little piece that's worth nothing because it's already held as, as conservation. So I'm just saying that, I'm just asking these questions sort of as an aside for the board. We may want to consider taking these in the future as valuable as possible. Doesn't mean we have to do anything, but it just leaves more options open.
And
I think you're absolutely right, Matt. I mean, and with other parcels, I mean, some of these are not really good examples because they're really, they're surrounded by open space, they have environmental conditions. But you're right, and with other takings, we have loosened that up and made them for broader purposes, and then there's always a chance to decide on that afterwards. But
Did you have a comment?
I was just to clarify that. So that would happen back at the town meeting. So this would have happened all the way back in 1999 is basically
99,
essentially.
or if we're pushing anything else forward.
Yeah.
Because as we were putting together and then analyzing and then unwinding and trying to complete the grand swap, which we're not supposed to talk about, go back and talk about, that was what became pretty clear.
Okay.
There's a whole valuation method, and, our appraisals, it has to be their appraisal, not our appraisal, there's a bunch of things. And so, we want to keep if we're looking at it from the town's perspective, and the town's fiduciary responsibility, we want to make sure that we're, taking care of that, so.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Somebody
Chair?
want to make, oh,
Yeah, so is there, I see the upside of doing that. So what's the upside of keeping it open space? Is it more just it's surrounded, so there's really no other use for it?
Well, I think the town has taken a clear position on that open space is a priority. Environmental protection is part of the town's overall goals and objectives. And I think, again, these parcels were identified back in 1999, and I don't think anything has changed. That this is in the middle of the Moreland Management District, and again, it's consistent with town practices and policies. Okay. So there's others that aren't so clear, that might be buildable and other, in other locations that are not so sensitive, but clearly this is a subset that doesn't really.
and
I'm-
parcels
sorry.
may not get approved at town meeting if they weren't going to be declared open space in terms of
That's right.
taking them, so.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to, as outlined, take that portion of various streets as parcel known as Second Division of Peach Swamps, shown in the map outlined.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now we'll open the public hearing on B. Oh,
Madam Chair, and behind you you can see that this parcel, which is located in Tom Nevers, it is surrounded on three sides by land owned by the Nantucket Conservation Foundation. It really appears that the other parcels once owned by the same owner prior to the Conservation Foundation, it really appears that this little tiny lot in the middle got left out. Nevertheless, it's there, still owned by the owners who had failed to pay taxes back in the 1930s. And so, again, this would be purchased for open space, and which is consistent with its immediate neighbors around it. So, ask to move forward on
Move
this.
approval?
Second.
oh,
Oh, we have
wait.
to close the vote.
I have to see if there's any public comment on 1B. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 1C, open the public hearing.
And 1C on the map behind you is a parcel out in Low Beach. This is out in an area of sand plains subject to flooding and a very low coastal plain here. The surrounding larger parcels, you can see what this little piece running through the middle is the old railroad bed. So this is land on both sides of that railroad bed. It's really an area that lends itself to open space protection like its neighbors. Parcel owned here, subject under the Conservation Commission, owned by the Land Bank. So again, this is an area of long-term protection, and we ask you to move forward with this acquisition for open space as well.
This is a public hearing. Are there any public comments? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing.
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And then we've been asked to continue D, E, and F to the October 25th meeting. Someone
So
would like to
moved.
make a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 2, we have a public hearing to consider expanding the senior citizen taxi rates on Town of Nantucket taxi rates. Yes.
Good evening, and thank you.
Oh. But just to be clear, I'll open the public hearing.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to come and speak today about a subject which is quite dear to our hearts. I'm representing the many retired people who live in Nantucket and live on a fixed income and are dependent for many reasons on the cabs to ride. The rates now are high enough that even for myself, if I want to go to town and do some errands, it's $60. It's between the tip, $30, and on you go. All we're asking is that the policy as it stands now, which allows people to use it within the town limits, seniors and year-round residents, as it's written, if they would expand that so it got past that, it would be a tremendous help for a lot of people who live here year-round. We also have a number of people who are starting to live on Nantucket who come here to retire here, and they're living on fixed income. And all of that makes for an uncomfortable position for a lot of people. I've recently, for myself, not that I'm crying the blues, but been put in a position where I am not driving. I'm more aware of it than ever before. And many people have said to me, Bruce, isn't there something that can be done? I said, I'll do the best that I can and try to appear before the board. But we all, I'm assuming, representing the many people who are residents year-round here and taxpayers, etc. It would be a big help to all of us and new people.
Could you explain exactly how on this chart what you're proposing would work?
The way all they need to do is expand what the rule is right now. What the rule is that you have to be a taxpayer living on Nantucket full-time.
It's saying that it's a $2 discount for in-town.
Yeah.
It's 8 to 6.
Right.
So you're saying.
So you're
like
suggesting a
other
$2
areas-
discount?
I'd like what the rule is now. Oh, excuse me.
That's all right.
I'd like to, what the rule is now, just have that same rule expanded into those of us who live within the zone. That's what happened when it was passed. You're not in that zone, so you're not entitled to it. I live in North Shop. I'm not that far out of it, but I am. And a lot of people, so there's a lot of people who would use the cabs because they don't have a choice. Yes, we have public transportation, which is good, no doubt about that. But for some people, it's not as simple.
So what zone are you in, just for an example?
You know, you could ask me, and I don't know which one it is.
He's in, I believe he's in Mid-Island A.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So it's $14.
So I think what the chairman's asking you, Mr. Corson, is do you want a $2 reduction on all rates?
Yes.
Since it's
A flat $2 reduction for people 65 and older.
Excuse me for not
Yeah.
being, I am tuned in, I think. What is it now?
Well, right now from your house, according to this, if you're Mid-Island A, it's $14, which is also Mid-Island B.
Right,
They're both $14.
and, well, the tip isn't your responsibility, but
But the discount is only for in-town.
Right.
And
it's only for in-town.
What I hear you asking is to expand that to all areas.
Exactly.
And on this, it says senior citizens. It doesn't specify. Oh, okay. Senior citizen offered as a courtesy to year-round residents only.
Exactly.
So do you just, what do you have to show to prove that you're a year-round resident?
But I would assume there's a number of ways we pay our taxes here around a year round. Well, no, that actually taxes wouldn't make a difference because everybody would pay for it.
I'm just curious what they normally ask for, or do they just know you?
Yeah, I'd have
is
to
it-
figure that one
Or
out.
they just know you? Okay.
Besides, and once it was out, hopefully you'll make some decision about it. But it would, being out of that zone is the problem.
And I think it would be hard to ask for like a driver's license because
So
a
just
lot
have
of
one-
elderly people don't have them
The
anymore.
rule is the
I'm just
rule.
I'm just curious how the taxis handle it in practice. It's not really our issue. But so you're asking for a flat $2 discount on all fares, not a percentage discount.
I want it to be what it is now for residents who get it, who live in town.
Well, it's only $6. But compared to
I think it to be $6.
$8.
I was going to say,
The in-town rate is $8, and they do a $2 discount to $6, which is really a 25% discount.
Right.
Which is fairly sizable when you get into bigger fares. So what I'm trying to understand is, do you want a flat $2 off the $14 rate?
what's the difference? Excuse me.
It would make it $12 for a ride into town from your house.
Right. Something is better
Which would
than
still
nothing.
be $24 round trip plus tip.
Right.
I'm just trying to make
No,
sure
no,
I'm
no, I
clear.
know what you're
And I'm
trying to
sure there's
say.
some other people who won't probably
I'm
want to
being
speak.
attacked by a microphone. I know what you're saying. I just want it, as I said, I repeat myself, to be the same rate that the guy across the street from me, who maybe it's not that close, but from North Shop to where the rule applies to residents and all that, it's not that far away.
It's just that still, if we do the same discount, you're still paying double what the in-town people are paying.
Yeah.
You're still paying double,
Unless you do a proportional.
a percentage discount.
Discount, yeah.
The rule, what I'm saying, and maybe I'm not getting it clear. The rule is, if you were to vote to put the rate the same, and not as in, I'm sorry,
Well,
as in town or out of town, it's one rate. That's what it is.
that would be changing the boundaries of how they figure.
Well, since that's in the, I know that's
Their
how it all.
fares. And
That's
that-
how it all got confused with the
That
boundaries.
that would be a bigger issue.
Excuse me,
But-
and I just wanted to, the $14 is an airport to Mid-Island A rate. If it was town to
Oh, I'm
Mid-Island
sorry.
A, if I'm doing
It's
it correctly,
$11.
it's 11.
Yeah, you're right. I was looking at the wrong one. Mid-Island B is 14 on the town. I think there's some other people who want to speak to.
Sure.
Take some
Thank
other
you for
comments.
giving me the
I just
chance.
wanted to clarify
Oh,
what I
could-
think
could
he's
you-
saying.
Could you just come up to the mic, please? Sorry.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I hear him saying he wants the same rate. He wants the $6 rate. He doesn't want a $2 discount. Right. I just thought I'd clarify. My name is Howard Dickler, Dickler. So I just wanted to clarify what he's asking for the board.
That's exactly right. Thank you. So, thank you
think we
very
have a
much.
couple
That's
of
what I
other
kept saying.
people
I'd
who
like to
wanna
have it the
comment.
same, but, it's important. It's important for people who have to use it. And luckily, the town does have the options that they've created with the wave and all of that. But it still is not the same. So by the time going to the Stop and Shop as an example, from my house in a cab, is going to be $30 by the time I'm done. Something's not right. That's kind of high. At the end of the month, when you look at how much you spend in cabs,
Yeah. But if it becomes a flat $6 rate for a senior citizen anywhere on the island, it would be very difficult for a cab to probably do that if they're going to Smith's Point or to Wauwinet,
I don't know, what do you?
where it would be $6. I mean,
Why don't we let some other people speak and come back to that? Yeah.
I'm just trying to clarify the,
Yeah, I understand what
The
you're saying,
ask.
and I hope you understand what I'm saying about the same rate. Not been told you can't have that rate because you live a block and a half away from the boundary. So
you're
no matter how you
asking
face
for a
it-
change to the boundary,
Exactly.
essentially.
So that we all get the same rate.
But that doesn't apply to all, because if I'm a senior citizen year-round resident and I live in Sconset,
Right.
I just don't foresee $6 as being viable.
I think that's what he's asking for, though.
Yeah, okay.
I mean,
All right.
we're trying to clarify. I don't know if we're
I
trying
think
to
there's somebody
clarify.
else who wanted to speak. Did you want to speak? Yeah, please come up.
Tom Walton, I'm representing the Taxi Association. First, we would just like to set the record straight on this issue, which has initiated this hearing tonight. And that was the discussion last June, where we were admittedly confused by Mr. Corson's interpretation of the current senior fare. One of our members has since discussed this with him, and it seems at the time he believed the senior fare ended just before his home in North Shop, when in fact it ends a half a mile before that. It ends like by Amelia Drive and Tom's Way. It's not even close. And our taxi association member has since cleared this up with him. I admit the zone system is confusing. I get confused myself. That being said, the Taxi Association by all means wants to continue helping Nantucket seniors, and we do support expanding the senior citizen taxi rates to other zones. Now, what that discount will be, I can't say right now. We haven't really discussed that, but we do support expanding it to other zones.
Do you have a suggestion?
I can't speak for everybody in the association, but it was mentioned, the $2 to every zone. I mean, that's
A flat $2 discount?
yeah, I mean, I don't think a percentage would work. Like you said, the 25% discount in town is pretty high. I don't think we could apply that to a Wauwinet or Sconset or anything like that. But, we're open to talking about it. But we don't see how it could be a percentage, because that would mean changing it would mean calculating fares in the taxi and making change also, which we try to avoid. So, but we do support expanding it to the rest of
Okay.
the island in some form.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's helpful.
Thanks.
Oh, can we just take this gentleman and then get a response from you?
Yeah, David Barrett, I'm a cab owner and operator for 20-something years, and I was president of the Taxi Association for a number of years. And I personally have an issue with the senior citizen rate, the way it's worded to begin with, where year-round residents. It's discriminatory in my eyes. I think anybody, senior citizen who lives in town, wants to go shopping and get the $2 rate off of the $8, bringing it down to $6. I don't think that they should say, oh, you don't live here, you just live here in the summer, you can't have it. I'm a senior citizen, I'm 74 years old, and, it's tough. And we're up against Uber. I'm sitting out there, I'm paying $700 a year for stickers from the town to sit there and watch Uber come in here and do my work for free, day in and day out, and day in and day out. So all summer long, I've had to work 2 to 3 hours longer to make the money that I ordinarily make. I mean, we're up against that, and I don't need anybody else in my pocket. I mean, I don't think it's fair personally, I don't think it's fair to add it all up on the whole menu of prices. I don't think it's right. They're getting a break in town for the shopping and things like that. They also have at their fingertips the ride, I believe, through the NRTA. Is that still?
Your Island Ride.
Is that still in operation, Libby?
Yes, Your Island Ride.
Yeah, they have that as an option.
If you meet certain criteria, correct.
Okay, yeah. But, I mean, I'm just as a senior citizen myself, I've been a real estate taxpayer for 35 years, and it's tough. All my expenses being a single senior citizen, 74 years old, and I just think it's a nice gesture, but I mean, to have to knock $2 off of everybody's fare, whether they live here or not, they're coming in on the plane, to say, oh, I'm a senior citizen, you have to knock the money off, It's who's going to pay? There's going to be they're going to check to see if you're a resident. Do you have to prove? Is it going to be complicated? But I just don't think we should have to do it to begin with, especially when we're up against Uber and they're really into our pockets, big time. Thank you.
You have to come to the mic, sorry.
I think you said when I was
Oh, no, you got to come to the mic.
I'm speaking for myself.
No, all I wanted to say is I wanted to thank him for saying some of the things that I had in mind and clarifying it. We just need to figure out a way, somehow, to make it more viable for seniors. I mean, I'm 75, 76, and it hurts. And I understand the confusion, certainly. I'd like to see Uber get the hell off Nantucket, but they're here, and I'm sure it's difficult, for the drivers to have all that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. I saw some people just come in. Did you want to speak to this issue?
I just walked in, so I'm not quite sure. I've been.
If you'd like, if you want to come up, you just need to come to the mic.
And I help my husband drive and operate Clyde's Taxi. And I'm sorry I'm late, but I just got back on island for taking care of my 90-year-old mother for 7 days. So I'm not quite sure what just transpired or what the decision or what the gripe is, really.
We're still in discussion about a potential senior citizen discount.
I thought we were already doing senior citizen discounts, and as a small town, all the cab drivers have been doing this for years without any regulation and taking care of all kinds of situations on this island. But the small town scene is kind of disappearing. We've got a lot of different competition going on out there. I've got a whole sheet here if you would like to see what's going on out there. So I'm not quite sure what has just transpired here, but I literally just got off the boat from 7 days of taking care of senior citizen issues. And I'm not quite sure
The concern-
what the decrease is or what regulations you are now putting upon us again.
Let me fill you in.
Yes.
We haven't made a decision. The request that's been made is that the way this sheet reads is that there's a $2 discount for in-town only.
Exactly.
And there's not a senior citizen discount for anyone who lives in Naushop or anywhere else on the island. There's no level of discount.
Well, isn't there a lot of other opportunities for them? I would love to take care of all the senior citizens in town, but that's just not feasible.
You need to come to the mic.
Especially with what is happening in the current climate on the island with the transportation systems. And it always seems like the taxi cab drivers in the industry is always being asked to give up one more thing, another thing here, another thing there. And it's like, when is enough enough? We would love to take care of all the senior citizens on this island. Some of us are almost senior citizens, if not senior citizens. And also taking care of elderly parents. We're struggling as well. It's $2 here, $2 there. I'm constantly, assisting people wherever and whenever I can. And most of us, there's not many of us here, are doing that as well. Because that's our community participation. You don't see that. We don't ask to be recognized for that. But we do it every day. And now it's a public thing that now we're going to be, disenfranchised because now we are standing up against yet again
This came up,
another thing where we're asked to provide another service at a discount.
this discussion came up because a year-round resident, senior citizen, requested that we discuss it.
Right, well,
And-
we're discussing it, and I understand that.
It wasn't initiated by us.
But I missed the whole topic that, transpired before this, in discussion that transpired before this. But I don't think the taxi cab drivers or any of us should be put in a sour light because of any of this discussion or what may transpire from here out. In the newspaper, taxi cab drivers do not want to support senior citizens. I can see the headline now. So it's something we do naturally throughout the course of our days for years. And it's $2 here, $2 there, giving up our taxi stands. Who do you think's sweeping into those spots, It's like we're doing the best we can, and I think we should be given credit for it. We're good people.
Thanks. Yeah, I want to agree with what Katie's saying. A lot of the cabs set up deals with some of the employees. My kids really can't use NRTA to get to work, and some of them come at some pretty crazy hours, and because it's 2 or 3 buses, and they don't link well to get to Cliff Road. It's 2 miles, 2.5 miles, but it doesn't work, and the cab's giving them a break because they do it regularly, and it's at weird hours. So, those are the little things that happen sort of quietly. We can't do it tonight, but one of the things we could talk about is trying to make the playing field more even. If there are charges that are now being charged to cabs that are not being charged to Uber, and they're within our purview or the airport's purview to change, that might be something that could be looked at. We can't do it tonight because we're in a meeting that's been posted for something else. But I do think that that's something, that could be considered. And I don't think that anyone, just so you guys realize, no one was putting the cabbies in a bad light tonight,
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure. I didn't want to come and to attack, but that's kind of the word on the street.
I understand.
Here we go again.
I understand, and that's, but that isn't what was occurring. That wasn't Mr. Corson's, understanding either. That wasn't his intent. I think his intent was, his intent is the difficulty, he's a half a mile away, and the difference between a $6 fare and an $11 fare. So he's paying $22 versus $12. So those are the, that's where he, from his perspective, and that's what he's bringing to us. But I think that there's other issues that need to be sort of, we or, recommendations from taxi cabs or some could, help alleviate some of the issues. And what you have there, I think, should be handed out to everybody. If you have and we can't, we're not going to talk about it tonight, but I would love to see it as one person.
Yeah, I mean, what they're charging is just unbelievable while we're forced to decrease.
No, I know. The surge pricing and the drunk driver pricing in the middle of the night is incredible. It's almost like they're adding a times 10 on it because people are drunk and won't notice.
Well, and
It's crazy.
I mean, this is a whole nother issue, but I don't know that you're aware that you're just standing on the street, and I know a group of people, 12 of them came by, and often they're not even running as Uber. They are running, just picking up whoever they want on the street whenever they want, and they're saying vulgarities to me and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and that's another whole issue. But the senior citizen issue, we would love to take care of all the senior citizens if we could. But the climate is getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter, and it's becoming more difficult. I don't know whether I covered it all or if I'm out of line, but I just wanted to come in and say my piece. And if you would like this material sent to you or sent all of you, I'm happy to do it.
Do you have an extra copy?
I do not have extra copies, but you're willing to look over some of
If you could,
These are
we
just
could get it
some
sent
great
sent
stories
around.
flying out there.
Yep, come on up.
I certainly understand and feel for how your attitude about your comments, but the whole thing. But explain something to me. how did Uber get in here? Who allowed them to be here? Who issued them licenses to be here? Was it just they stepped off the boat and said, we're in business? You know, we're going to be Uber. They're all over the world now. But how did, in a community that's so well involved with you people and our boards and all of that, who set up real situations and rules for us, I just don't understand how they got in here. I don't know, maybe you know better than I do, but how
Uber's
Uber
not
ever got in
licensed.
here.
Madam,
Yes, please.
Madam Chairman,
I would
The
think-
town manager can address that.
I just was going to comment that this is not a hearing about Uber, but it's here as it is in any other community. There are no rules prohibiting it, and no
Well,
rules
that's what I
that-
said, it's
Municip-
worldwide, they're all over the place.
Right, so.
But that, I mean, that's my question is just, you're saying that it's free world, they can do whatever they want.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but it is a business that is allowed in Massachusetts.
I do know other communities. Montreal, Uber just announced that they're pulling out of Montreal because of Montreal city rules and regulations imposed on Uber. I don't know what those are. I don't know if those are, something that this town could look at. But there are places around the world, London, that are pushing back on Uber.
I'm sorry for having mentioned it, because this is not in the,
Yeah,
on the
we're
agenda.
not really discussing
Yeah.
Uber, but.
I just want to give you these. I know you're not talking about it now, but just, you can, these all the communities around the world that have gotten rid of Uber, and there is a way, and if I was, I think if I was a selectman, I was personally, if I was on the board, and I hear this information and see this information, I would be online trying to find out how they did it to protect my people as far as Uber goes. I don't want John not to get into it, but there is some information there.
Madam Chairman, again, not to get into it, but the state prohibits municipalities in Massachusetts from adopting regulations that keep Uber out. So,
They do.
Because we did look at it, and that's.
Correct.
yes.
So until it changes at the state, we don't have a lot of control over that. Yes, please come up.
My name's Bob McDonald. I'm a taxi driver. And isn't there a senior bus on the island that goes around here, a little short bus? So why can't, what's their route? Do they do the whole island or just in town or?
I believe.
we've covered that a tiny bit before you came in, but it is run by the NRTA. It's an on-demand service, and senior citizens that meet certain criteria are eligible for it. It's not open to everyone.
Okay, thank you. And
It's
again,
limited hours.
we all got killed with our competition this summer by 25%. So, thank you.
Are there any further public comments? Do you guys want me to close the public hearing, or do you want to continue this discussion?
No, I think we can close the public
Okay.
section. I
Can
think.
close the public hearing. The only real possibility that I think was floated was a $2 discount on all fares for year-round senior citizens.
What I would like to do is, and I don't want to be pushing this down, but one of the taxi members who's representing the taxi said they would like to look at it and come back. It's either $2, but I would like them to come back and say, with their recommendation, is it everywhere? Is it a little higher in some areas? I mean, I just think, rather than dictate the terms, I would like them to come back, hash it out among themselves, and come back.
Well, then we'll have to
I like
schedule
that.
another public hearing.
I like that idea,
Yeah.
because you can, then, they're smarter, they know more about this than I do, certainly, so anything they could add to the conversation.
Can I just
would
note
be
that the
helpful.
chairman asked them to do that very same thing back in June, and we've never received anything?
We did ask for some unity back in June when we said that we would discuss this in the fall in terms of a proposal. And
I would say, though, I think last time we didn't have anyone really to represent or put any recommendations out there. It was the first time we all heard about it. It sounds like they have discussed it. I would say it's the busiest time of year, so I would imagine getting everyone together for the taxis. But I would be along the same lines of Matt. I know would be another public hearing, but if the taxi association has recommendations and they'd be willing to consider working with us, I would give them one more try on that, one more opportunity.
But I wouldn't push it till June.
Well, no, because my concern, and that's one of the reasons we told Mr. Corson that we would bring it back now, is because the shuttle service ends soon. And until we get our year-round bus service funded, there's not another option for people. And I completely sympathize with everybody's situation in this. It is the way business.
I also know directly know the concessions a lot of the cabs make if they know someone is in need and asks for it. And so that some of this is the sort of the community aspect of this. I mean, and so some of that I have, faith in, maybe not all of them in the summer, but I have faith in most of them in the winter. I just think that's, they know who they're picking up. They know where, I just think that there's, a lot of this is happening anyway, but, but maybe we bring it back earlier bring it back in a month, bring it back in 6 weeks. I'm not sure of the timing.
Is Wade going to run all winter?
Columbus Day.
So, maybe we could schedule a public hearing at a date certain, and that might bring the taxi folks together to
2 weeks.
come back. Yep.
Council's gone. I was wondering if you could vote to rescind your vote to close the public hearing and continue
That
it.
was why I asked if you all wanted me to continue the public hearing. How long do we need to advertise it? We need 2
3
weeks,
weeks.
right? 3 weeks. So that would be,
They need time to get, they need time to meet, so.
If it's even, can they do that? Vote to rescind their vote to close the public hearing? Or is that
I'm
too
not sure, but
messy?
you could probably, well, I guess if you're going to accept,
I thought we've
I
done
think
it
it's
in the
okay to
past.
post another public hearing and give the folks 3 weeks to meet.
can we put it on the October 25th agenda?
That's a
And
month.
if a recommendation isn't forthcoming, then we
Yeah.
do the $2 and we move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to bring this back for another public hearing on October 20, well, we'll take a vote on that, but the proposal is to bring this back on October 25th for another public hearing. And please, in the meantime, if the taxis could figure out some kind of a proposal that could help the residents that need it.
Yeah, that's agreeable, that makes business sense and
And we'd,
easily
Some kind of a
understood.
suggestion.
we'd need that recommendation by October 18th. We'd need that recommendation in hand by October 18th.
So,
I like that idea.
can someone make a
I'll make
motion
that
to that
motion.
effect?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all.
Sorry, who seconded? Did you?
Town managers report.
Don, you want to give me that for the page I've
Yes.
got?
Yep. Yeah. Could you circulate all that info to us
scan
when
it.
you get a chance?
we have a couple of traffic safety work group recommendations. The first has to do with eliminating an on-street parking spot area across from 11 Fayette Street. I think there's a little bit of a picture here. This has kind of gone around and around a little bit, and Erica could go over the traffic safety discussion if need be, but this action is recommended by town admin. It's a very narrow street, and really, regardless of the location of the driveway, it's quite difficult to get down there when there's a car parked there.
I've looked at this pretty closely when we were talking about the handicap spot on Fayette, and I actually, when I was down there, I said there should not be a car parked there. It's very, very dangerous with people coming in and out of the town parking lot. And all I can think of was that people used to cut a little bit onto private property to pass cars along each other, but by each other. And since there have been houses built closer to their property lines, because the street is just not wide enough in its own layout. So
And we're talking about where this
it's one space.
Toyota,
one space.
the closest vehicle is the one we're talking about.
Yeah.
The space.
Right here.
Yeah, okay.
And the houses there do have driveways. Also, the town parking lot's right there.
So I make a motion, we eliminate the on-street parking across from 11 Fayette Street.
I would second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
One point before we lose this picture, one thing we have to think about, look at the size of the car further up. You know, one of the things that's happened over the last 25, 30 years is the width of the vehicles has increased substantially, and therefore they feel as though they own the sidewalks and they own the parking spaces. One of the things that I've suggested for years is we should delineate the widths, and if a car doesn't fit within that width, they shouldn't be parking there, because they're either parking on a sidewalk or they're parking themselves into the street. So if and when we ever have a, sort of an overall view instead of one-off situations, I think we should be talking about parking space widths.
You mean marking them out as little
as a-
rectangles?
Yeah.
And if your tires go over, you can't park.
Yeah, if your tires go over, it's be easy to mark, you can be ticketed. You know, what's happening now, and when you see Cliff Road, we'll really talk about it, but what's happening now, the cars aren't, thin, they're bigger and bigger, and that's part of the problem.
Okay, so now we're on to Cliff Road.
The second one is citizen-generated and is a request to eliminate 2 parking spots at 13 and 15, I think it's 2 parking spots, 13 and 15 Cliff Road. And again, the traffic safety discussion could be reviewed, but this is not recommended by town admin.
Madam Chair, may I speak on the issue? Arthur Gasparo, I'm a civil engineer here on behalf of the Jensen family, and Mr. Jensen is also present. I've submitted the materials which you have in your packet, and I have hard copies if anybody wants them. Would anyone like one? Okay, so we have a situation here. We're located right near the start of Cliff Road. When you come up the hill as you're leaving town, I think the picture that happens to be on the screen at the moment shows the situation very well. And we presented this matter to the Traffic Safety Advisory Work Group, and they agreed and recommended that there should be a yellow line that connects. There's 2 existing no parking zones in this location, which I show on this graphic in yellow are the existing no parking. And our proposal and the recommendation from Traffic Safety is to essentially connect the 2 yellow lines to have no parking in that area. The reason for this is that it's quite a dangerous spot. It has to do both with the roadway width at this location is about 22 feet from curb to curb, and the vehicles are parking on the sidewalk and then as well as into the travel lane. You're coming up a hill. I'm sure everyone's familiar, driven this a million times. You're coming up a hill, around a curve, so it really decreases your sight distances in both the vertical and horizontal planes. The vehicles who are exiting town then therefore tend to drift to the south into the other lane of traffic, which again is shown in the by this graphic, the Cisco truck. I would remind you, this is of course also the alternate truck route. There, it happens regularly with regular, vehicles as well, not just the trucks. Also, bicyclists use this route and are therefore pushed further out. The cars also therefore block the sidewalk. So now you have, depending on how any individual driver parks, sometimes they're tight to the hedge and people can't continue down the sidewalk and are out into this lane of traffic. Otherwise, sometimes the vehicles leave just enough of a gap, certainly not maybe for a stroller, but that people can squeeze by there. So again, it's a bit unregulated in terms of, sort of the way much of the parking on the sidewalk in Nantucket occurs. I understand that's a long-standing practice. We're not going to solve the parking on the sidewalk issue tonight. We want to focus on this particular spot, which we believe poses a danger to the public in a whole variety of manners, the traffic flow, the pedestrians, the bicycles, and then as well, Mr. Jensen's driveway is located just to the west of the Jeep that's in the photo. And so part of what he has seen and observed in his many years at this location is that coming and going and exiting from his driveway has become extremely dangerous. The sight lines are greatly reduced. So here, thank you very much. You can see Mr. Jensen's very small vehicle, which is in the driveway. When I took these photos, there was obviously no one parked in this area. I was trying to show sort of the way I think it could be and should be, which would be right now if where I show in a yellow line, was approved by this board, then you would greatly improve your driver sight distances both on the approach up the road as well as for vehicles exiting the driveway. We feel that this would, certainly sensitive to any loss of parking downtown. I'm well aware of the situation that, of the parking. But in this case, I believe that the public interest is furthered by not allowing parking at this spot for safety reasons. Again, the increased size of the vehicles are also, becoming a concern. Increased traffic volume have all ratcheted this up where over years this has now reached a point of where we feel this needs to be addressed. And we would hope that you, as the Board of Selectmen, would agree with the traffic safety recommendation and eliminate the parking in this area and agree to put in the yellow line. I think that's mostly of what I had. Like I say, Mr.
Matt has a
Sure.
question.
All right. With that picture you have up right now, there's the yellow line, and then there's a car there. That space would be removed?
That's correct.
Okay.
So I couldn't draw it through the car, but
That's what I'm saying.
That's right. Ideally, you would have, as you come around the curve and up the hill, there would be a stretch of that no parking, which goes back to the GIS graphic of a solid yellow, no gaps, if you would.
So you would see a sight line from
Exactly.
sort of the right side of
Right.
11 Cliff, from sort of right after their first driveway. You'd have a sight line past Mr. Jensen's.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's how many spaces again? 2?
It may be up to 3. Again, it depends on the size of the vehicles. The length of the line would be about 70 feet, so it could be 3 vehicles that, depending on how people park, much along the same line, it's not delineated. So that would be, I think, a maximum.
I'd like to hear from town administration why they are recommending not adopting this.
Thank you. A couple of reasons. For one thing, this situation has existed for quite a long time. I understand there's a justification that traffic has increased on the road. But I think that our office in particular and the board members, I'm sure, get a lot of complaints about the removal of parking spaces. And I think I would argue that this situation, it can be found in many places around the island. And once we start taking the spots away for situations like this, they're going to keep coming in with neighbors who want to get out of their driveways easier and people who say it's dangerous. The dangerous argument, and I do not dispute that, but again, many, many people could make that argument all over the island.
Thank you.
Well, I'll disclose that I live about a quarter mile from here. I have a business about a quarter mile from here for just for the record, for the people at home. And so, but I don't think that precludes me from acting on it. I don't think that's going to, influence me one way or the other. I think I have the most history of anyone understanding what's happened over the years here, and some of it is, you know, I've looked at this, and I think that this should be a test case, but we shouldn't be looking at it for just these 2 or 3 spaces. I think we should be taking an overall view of this from here all the way up to North Liberty Street. And it would include probably removing the sidewalk on the right side. It would include fixing the sidewalk and removing the poles on the left side. It would include widening the road wherever possible to get a bike, you know, to get space for bikes, and delineating parking. I think my guess is that the residents there would be more than happy to pay a betterment, half or all or some portion, to do this. Because if you've ever tried to walk up there, the sidewalks are ruined because cars are parked on them. I saw an elderly lady trip and fall into a telephone pole the other day walking down the street on this street. So, you know, and it's because the cars have ruined the sidewalks. So there's a whole bunch of issues here. I'm not sure that this one thing alone, like Artis said, this is a small change that could be helpful. But I think at some point, how are we going to ever, you know, are we going to continue to allow, you know, sort of the traffic mayhem and the, you know, the ruined sidewalks and the millions of dollars that it's costing the town because we just are not able to say no to people? Are we going to continue this? And I just hope we don't. I just think this would be a great place to say, okay, here's a better way to do it that will be enforceable and be a positive for the community and a positive situation for the neighborhood. And I think that we could end up with the same or more parking spaces in a safe manner. And so I don't know where to go with that. I'm not sure it's going to come out of the planning department. I'm not sure we have time. I know we don't have time for it. I'm not sure traffic safety will do it. You know, we're in the town, we talk about these things. I've been here, this is almost my 12th year, and we've talked about these things around and around, but they don't really change. So I would love to see this be the area that changes how we do things.
For what it's worth, I couldn't agree more. I think that it would be a great transportation planning project. And we know through NPDC that entire process and putting weighing all of the transportation projects, whether it's Tom Nevers bike path or this corridor, and, you know, going through the whole CIP. I was part of the traffic safety advisory group, and I think it might have been 04, 05 that had recommended the removal of the parking. And that was briefly removed, and then I believe it was a bed and breakfast owner lobbied a particular selectman, you know, and everything kind of blew up. And I hope that this isn't sort of a piece of a remnant of that sort of a concern. And I do understand that the overall scope of the project would probably get into something like that. And much like you said, in 12 years of doing it, that's what we hope this doesn't get bogged down as. This is an immediate spot where the road makes a bend, comes up a hill, and is dangerous. And I think, to the town manager's concern, I do think that is how could be an answer in another situation if other citizens brought it forward. This is a unique situation, and every case needs to be looked at based upon the merits of the situation, understanding the concern for precedent. And in this case, I think that traffic safety does not lightly recommend for the removal of parking. It's a fairly difficult recommendation in general to obtain. And I think that when the consideration here is the factors of, what's better for the overall public interest, the parking partially on the sidewalk, and causing these safety concerns, or not having it.
I just wondered, Madam Chairman, if after Mr. Gasparo makes his comments, if the board can deliberate.
Sorry.
If you'd like to say something, and then we'll discuss it.
Good evening. My name is Julius Jensen. We've lived at 15 Cliff Road for about 50 years, and before that my family in Sconset and Union Street, so we've seen Nantucket then, and we've seen what's happened, and we see it now. This is a situation as we got into this summer, and we saw the kind of traffic problems, the families, the strollers out in the middle of the road, just the terrific increase in traffic this year. We thought it would be the time to have a really thorough engineering study, and I think Art Gasparo has put forth a very professional analysis of the situation here. First, I want to thank you for taking any time at all as I think of the time you're faced with as far as the island home and the other tough concerns this island has. I just appreciate your taking the time for this. I would really emphasize, the engineering report. It's gotten tougher and tougher, and now, to my mind, and seeing it every day and during the summer, the danger here, I think, has just escalated, and I think it becomes a situation unto itself. I don't think that giving up these parking spaces will hurt the commerce and the stores in town, and certainly overall concerns are more important than any individual. But I just appreciate the chance to bring to all yours attention the kind of danger that has escalated here, and it's hard to see that it won't be even more next summer. So I did want to come. I appreciate your time. Happy with any questions you may have, but again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim?
I guess a couple of comments. While I, will what's that expression? Fight to the death for an. So I didn't know if he's going to speak again.
I'm just standing by.
Standing by for.
Okay, so we're going to deliberate, and I'm not.
You're not threatening to fight to the death with him?
No, I'm not asking you to respond. I'm not. This isn't a back and forth. Okay. Every citizen has the right to bring up their own private, personal issues, and that's what this is. This is a request from a citizen who's gone out and hired an engineer who's put together, as Art always does, a very professional study that will be to the benefit of the person that's paid for the study. And none of us can argue or state that it will or will not, as Mr. Jensen said, not hurt commerce. I don't know that we're really into that, but what concerns me is that we react to these, and there are a lot of folks that can't go out who have these same issues and don't have the means to go out and hire an engineer and bring those before us, or don't feel comfortable standing up in front of a group. And so I think we should take very seriously the recommendation of town administration. And I guess I'd differ with Matt a little bit. I think we do have time to talk about these things, and we should.
Yeah, well, my question, not the question for Jim, I look at it slightly differently, Jim. I think 95% of what we do, we just finished the yard sale program. 95% of what we do is react to what people need for their benefit. And what we're not very good at is looking at the big picture and finding the time to build the big picture around the community benefit. And we should do that.
And you said we don't have to. I think we need to make the time.
We do, but like I said, I've served. This is my second time serving. I've been involved in government for 25 years. It's not, it's what I'd like to see us do. It's not what we typically do. And so short of that, how does any of this? Pick on Cliff Road? How is Cliff Road ever addressed? Some of this we've known as an issue. Art worked on it 12 years ago. Some of this was recommended in the comp plan 20 years ago. I mean, I think, we made we had a board vote to only allow parking on 3 roads, one wheel up on 3 roads, all the rest, and that was the policy that was handed to the police. All the rest of the roads were to have no cars parked on any sidewalks. That was either ignored by default or ignored by a policy change by a board later. But now we have cars parking everywhere with every sidewalk is fair game, just about as much as you want to park. And you watch trucks drive over them. And so how, who in the government is fixing that? Who in the government is overseeing that and stopping that?
Well,
nobody. And so so I don't think that, so I see the sight lines here. I think if we actually did a study of this entire sector, I think that these would be removed because of the danger that Art is talking about. I'm tempted to not vote for it, to try to press to have the whole thing looked at, but I don't think that will work, so I'm probably going to support this, but it's a, how do we say it? I've been talking about this a lot, and this is just an opportunity to really, what are we going to do?
I guess for me, it depends on what you believe, what I believe the role of government is.
Right.
And to me, the role of government is to come up with a plan to provide safe parking, adequate parking, and we don't do zoning by where a group of neighbors go out and hire an architect or an engineer and then present that to town meeting saying we'd like to get the zoning changed. We have a planning department that does that.
No, we're going to special town meeting, Jim, and that's exactly what we're facing, is a group of neighbors who've done that.
But it's not the right. It's not the right way to do it.
No,
it's not the right way to do it.
the wrong way to do it.
I think that we've already identified that we all are prioritizing traffic, and transportation issues, which involve sidewalks and parking and bike paths and roadways. And we've also started talking very seriously about establishing an entire parking commission to look at these issues, because we do need something more comprehensive. And I could look at probably any street downtown and find multiple places that we should be eliminating parking spaces. And that's what's really hard. I mean, our roads were built a long time ago, and they don't work that well. I'm personally inclined to go with town administration's recommendation on this. I would love to do a further study of Olive Cliff Road, just like with Sunset Hill, which was a slightly different request. Last week, we said we really need to look at the whole area, because you do this and it's a domino. Next week, maybe we have the inn that's up at that corner coming in and asking us to reverse our decision, because now there's no parking spaces that they might have utilized. There's just so many things that play into this when we're looking at just one little section of it. Jason, I'm sorry, you wanted to say something.
I've been listening. It's all good stuff. So I agree and disagree with a lot of things that are being said right now. Matt, I agree. I would love to see us have a study of Olive Cliff Road. I would love to see no parking from here, 13, all the way to North Liberty. I run and ride there a lot, the tour, so I feel it on bikes, what it feels like. Be pushed out on the side of the road. But we don't have this parking commission yet. And so it is just piecemeal when citizens bring it up. So I'm in favor of removing these. Yes, it will benefit the homeowner, but it will benefit hundreds and thousands of people. Okay, maybe not hundreds of thousands, thousands of people more. It is dangerous coming up there. It is the alternate truck route. I do agree with everyone that piecemealing it isn't the way to go, and I would love to see a parking commission. So if it's, I will vote for this to remove these spaces.
And in this scenario, although you're against piecemeal, you are in favor of removing these because of safety.
Yep, because I've seen it. I've been there. I see the cars going on the others, crossing halfway on the other side of the lane.
Yeah. And I do struggle with, I absolutely agree with Olive Cliff from the bottom to North Liberty being very dangerous. I can't believe the cyclists with kids that are having to navigate those roads, but my concern is I've heard people on Easton, Westchester, and again, street after street say, can't get out of my drive. It's really dangerous. What is going on? And I think this is a prime example of a place that, yeah, it is very dangerous. And I can see from the different studies there's reasons why I would be for it. But at the same time, I just don't think piecemealing is going to get us there. We don't have the parking, and we need a parking commission. I don't think we need the town government study to tell us we need a parking commission. We need a parking commission. And sooner rather than later, because this is many meetings in where we've spent the most time on a parking issue. So.
I mean, you mentioned Easton, and I work down there and park down there, and as many people I know, I mean, there could be such a significant argument for the number of cars that have been hit on Easton Street to eliminate an entire side of parking because they do not fit. But that's such a detriment to lose all those parking spaces. It's a major problem. But I was with someone yesterday whose car's been hit twice in the last 2 months, just properly parked on Easton Street.
So I don't know if we're ready for a motion, but I'll throw one out there and see if it gets. So I would make a motion that we accept the town administrator's recommendation and not eliminate the on-street parking at 13 and 15 Cliff Road.
I'm going to second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
I am in favor, so that motion carries 3-2.
Madam Chairman, I have one editorial comment. This is Matt for a future state. The city of San Francisco is now making plans for how they're going to use the empty parking spots when driverless cars and come to that town. There's now businesses growing up on how to use all that great municipal land.
And I dream about that day.
It's happening.
It's going to happen.
And I just want to add that I do think I hear both you, Jim, and Matt talking about, I think ultimately we want the same thing. We want the same end goal. But I do think that right now, without something like a parking commission, we're unsure of how to make that happen.
The other thing I'll mention is at the other end of this, right before North Liberty, this is thin. What did you say, 22 feet? It's probably 19 or 20 in some places to 22. It widens up to 26, 28. There's probably space for on-street parking. But once you go past the curve and you get to Coffin Park, it widens to like 30 or 40 feet. And there's tons of parking. But what happened 25 years ago is some of the neighbors came and wanted that taken away. So it got taken away. And so now what's happened, and then it turned into the truck route, and so it becomes a raceway. And so people coming inbound to the 6:30 boat, I've seen trucks almost, I saw one truck on 2 wheels going around the corner because they were going down the street at 50. And so I think some of the things that have to be planned into this, if we ever get to that stage, is traffic calming, on-street parking in the places where it's appropriate, and really enforcing the 20s and 25s. I mean, I think, this is an urban area, and and enforcing the widths. If you've got a 15-foot wide vehicle or whatever it is, you can't park there. I mean, there's certain common sense things that we need to put into place, and we have to bury some poles and find a way to pay for that. And then it would be safe for people to walk, it would be safe for people to park, the whole thing would work.
Sorry that you
I just
were
want to say thank you for your
unsuccessful.
time. I appreciate the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration, and I just hope that the danger and the safety concern doesn't come up before the bigger picture can be dealt with. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is an overview of a new application on our website called OpenGov. It's a financial transparency application, and Finance Director is going to take us through just a quick overview.
Thank you very much. So, as the town manager said, we've actually, on the Finance Department page, have added what's known as OpenGov web portal. And to access it, you would go to the Nantucket homepage and then go to the Finance Department. And from here, right at the top is OpenGov Financial Transparency Portal, and if you click on that, It'll bring this page up. One thing I do want to highlight is we have an email address there called opengov@nantucket-ma.gov. So as you use it, if you have questions about it or suggestions about some reports that you might think might be informative, that's the way to reach out and be able to give us that information or ask any questions. So to access it, you click the button there that says click here. It brings you to this page. Right now, we've uploaded 4 reports. We're continuously refining and updating more reports as we move forward. The first one that you see is the assessed valuations. We've taken assessed valuations all the way back to fiscal year 2006. One of the neat things is in the upper right, directly across from that, in the upper right-hand corner, you can actually change the display. That graph won't actually work that well, but if you go to the second one there, it's a plotted graph, so it actually kind of shows it in a different format. We've added the tax rates as well from 2005. We're in the process of adding commercial and personal property and industrial to this. Right now it shows residential all the way back to fiscal 2006. One other thing that we thought would be very important or people might be interested in is we've showed a history of new growth, which we talk about frequently in budget presentations. So in the bar graph, you can see that. That again goes back to fiscal 2006. The next one that we have added is current year expenditures and revenues. And when you actually click on this and use it the first time, you do get a walkthrough on how to do this. If you go to the show part here on the left-hand side, Erica, right down in there. Yep. This will give you the opportunity to show revenues and expenses, both of them combined. It also allows you to pick fiscal year. We have all the way back to 2011, I think, in here. Uploaded. This is actually a portal's being done to be able to manage and upload this on a monthly basis directly from Munis so that we don't have to remember to go in and do this. And it also allows you to filter it by funds for special revenues, capital projects, enterprise funds underneath by filtered. Yep. And then it'll also let you pick departments, expense types, and so on and so forth. It actually has a large amount of data. It will tie and go back to all the reports that show up that we do for quarterly presentations. The next reports to be rolled out are we're going to put the annual budget that's approved at town meeting into this. That's actually hopefully going to be available tomorrow. And we are making some changes, like I said, to the tax rates, and we may break down new growth into some different areas as well. So this is kind of where we're at as an opportunity for the public to go in and look at this, parse this data. It can be exported to Excel if you're interested. And like I said, there is opengov@nantucket-ma.gov if there's questions or suggestions about things that they might like to see.
Erica, can you go back to new growth real quick? No, that's fine. I just think it's very interesting that you can see the dip that we had when we went south. And when we are budgeting things and when we are talking about being fiscally prudent, that is why.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that is lost sometimes by the public because our tax rate is low, by, everyone. They think that it's going to continue like the high points forever. And it doesn't work like economics, and it doesn't work that way. And I think, and you look at how good we were in 05, 6, 7. We've had a couple years close, but, we're not even where we were there in some ways.
Right.
And I think that, people think we are. And it's just interesting when you actually base your decisions on actual facts, and you actually get the facts and look at them instead of just having preconceived notions of this is good for us. When you actually look how things cost and whether we can afford them or not, and you look at things like this, this is a really good thing. And if people start to actually look at this and realize, and see which departments are growing and which haven't grown, and what happened to some of them when we hit the downturn, and and then sort of project out. And Brian's really good at projecting some of this stuff out. Start projecting this out. There's a real reason to be careful here. Anyway, and I think it's great.
Thank you.
It is great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I was, I love this stuff.
Everybody loves graphs and numbers.
I like the numbers, but the graphs are even better.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. We had meant to get this out a while ago, but it's a lot of work to get it up, so we appreciate the work of him and his staff. We next have an emergency management update. This is just a general update about the town's storm and weather emergency preparedness. We had our recent emergency operations annual meeting. a couple weeks ago, and I thought it might be a good idea in light of what was weather-wise happening to have the chief give a little bit of an overview. And since we've had a storm since we were working on this agenda, a quick update about Jose and what might have been different, or what we might do differently as a result of some stuff that happened there.
Okay. I was also asked to answer a couple of questions about emergency shelters and the evacuation ability or plan that we have for the island. But generally, when a storm or some other imminent natural disaster or human disaster is facing Nantucket, we have a system set up here. We're an emergency operations center in which key department heads get together and coordinate our activities. That is how we're going to do it. A typical event, which is what we just saw, would result in what's called a level 1 activation of the EOC. Our terminology is very similar to the state MEMA and FEMA operations, so that we're all talking the same language. But a level 1 essentially is myself and the emergency management coordinator are monitoring the situation, getting almost twice a day updates from the MEMA Hurricane Support Team, which provides situational awareness reports. These start coming out a week or so before an event is expected to potentially impact an area, so we can start preparing. At that point in time, we'll usually have a meeting with pertinent department heads, DPW, Health Department, a few others, to go through our pre-event planning stage. It's just a reminder that building coordinators, there's one for every public building, will be notified and updated, and they have to have their supplies like sandbags, maybe boards for windows, plywood, et cetera, if they have a building that has a susceptibility to that. They have the supplies. DPW works with them. DPW has a whole list of things, and I got to say, this last event, I don't usually single out a department too much, but the DPW was outstanding in the way they prepared the town for the storm that was coming to us. Based with the information we had, we thought it was going to be a lot worse. Then a level 2 activation is when things start happening and there's a real coordination required. In other words, we've got major power outages, we've got a winter storm that's impacting a lot of snow. We'll all get together. It'll be DPW, myself, the fire chief, the emergency management coordinator, others that are deemed pertinent, the finance department being there to keep track of our purchasing, our expenditures, and our procurement issues. And we'll manage the event there. And the coordination is what makes it work. We're able to sit there and not send a fire truck and a police car to the same incident if it's not required, that kind of thing. Or to get a DPW plow to plow the way for the ambulance to go on some aid call. A level 3 activation, which we've never had to do here, but we're prepared, is when all town departments assemble pertinent, what they call emergency functions, emergency support functions. There's a whole list of them: transportation, communication, public works, firefighting, police, etc. Different department heads represent different emergency support functions, and they directly link with MEMA and FEMA to coordinate resources coming to the island, basically for recovery in our case, not for anything else. FEMA will support, as we saw a few years ago, Nantucket. If we have enough advantage, they will deploy an urban search and rescue team here pre-event. But beyond that, we're going to be waiting, like many of the other islands you see down the Caribbean, for assistance to get here. So our team is prepared to work with FEMA through various communications links that we have to get it going. So that's how we operate major events, emergency management problems. Shelter operations, we have a shelter that is approved by the American Red Cross for them to support. It's certified to hold 500 people capacity. I think we have really 100 cots and a trailer and some floor space for sheltering. The most we've had is an event that would have about 100 people in it. Generally, it's more like 25 to 30 people to show up. We're in the process of working with the school and the Red Cross to certify the elementary school and the new intermediate school as shelters because they now have generators capable of supporting long-term shelter operations. But there's a process we have to go through to get the support from the Red Cross. We also have some understandings with St. Paul's Church, for instance, to be able to open, refer people there for warming purposes if it's a warming shelter. When do we open a shelter? Basically, depending on what the incident is. But the Culture and Visitors Center, they keep very close tabs on available rooms in the town. And if we're in a storm event, for instance, and boats get canceled, generally it's up to the Visitors Cultures to mate people up with the open rooms. If we have to evacuate one house, we will try to find them a hotel or a lodge. We won't open a shelter. If we don't know, for instance, the July 4th hurricane, we were told by the boats there were 1,000 people that were left on the island. They couldn't get off. We opened the shelter. 12 people showed up. 9 of them left, and we told them they couldn't go to the bar and come back. So, you know, who knows? Evacuation plan. There is no evacuation plan for Nantucket as people think of evacuation plans. Quite frankly, we've got a geographical limitation that prevents an effective evacuation of the island. If it's going to be a storm event, people really have to be moving 36 hours before the event. At that point in time, the margin of error on storm projections are, 200 miles each direction. People don't listen when you say, you better leave. We saw it down with Irma in Florida. People really don't pay attention to about 12 hours pre-event. Our only way off the island is boat and plane, and that's a very small number of people that can go on either one of those modalities. Plus, if we did take, for instance, the Eagle, forget about putting cars on it, just fill it with people. All we're going to do is dump people into Cape Cod, which will be equally as affected by any disaster as we are. So we're really not taking them somewhere where they're going to be any safer. We're just putting our burden onto another community. So we've adopted what's called a shelter-in-place model. It's where we have the shelters here. They're built to hurricane specifications. I don't believe they're probably built to Category 5, but the chance of a Category 5 coming up here, knock on wood, is very, very, very slim. It's very, very rare. I believe it's only happened one time where there's anything that approached New England. That was a Category 3 even. Category 2 is mostly what we're looking at up here because of the upper level wind shears and the cold water that it goes to from coming up the south. So our evacuation plan, because of the geographic limitations and the transportation problems, is a shelter in place. We have we do have a working, we don't have the agreement, but MEMA has plans in place to quickly bring supplies, equipment, things to the island with using National Guard resources should that become necessary after an event. But prior to the event, leaving is not really a good option. Tropical Storm Jose, our post-event report. Our EOC was activated at level 1. We were monitoring what was going on. We received our first situational awareness statement from MEMA on September 14th at 9 p.m. At that time, they were saying the potential Category 1 hurricane could impact southeast New England. We got our 5th situational awareness statement on the 16th, still reporting a Category 1 hurricane. Now, this was 120 hours out, 5 days. And there was a very good probability of a Category 1 impacting the Cape and the islands. By the 9th situational awareness statement on September 19th, the storm was still a Category 1, but was expected to decrease to tropical storm and park about 60 miles south of Nantucket. By the 12th situational awareness statement on September 20th, 4 p.m., the storm in fact stopped 150 miles south of Nantucket, and tropical storm force winds that extended out 180 miles and is stalled there for 72 hours. So our pre-event preparation, and this is where DPW just shined, all departments did a good job this time, I should say. Pre-placement of barricades from flood-prone areas, They removed silt sacks from protected catch basins. They secured trash lids on public trash receptacles. They closed and secured the tide gate at Children's Beach by actually putting a heavy piece of concrete in front of it this time so somebody couldn't open it. Removed the tennis court windscreens, removed the wooden benches from flood-prone areas, cleaned the catch basin grates townwide, secured all public restroom facilities, filled in pre-staged sandbags, deployed those sandbags to 34 and 37 Washington Street and 16 Broad Street. They deployed sandbags to Tom Nevers Field where there's concern for erosion, and they deployed sandbags to in-town catch basins to direct flow of water. They removed storage of wind-exposed items like light outdoor furniture at concessions, and they stockpiled wood and plywood. And they worked with the building coordinators to assist in securing their facilities. During the storm, we had one power outage related to a utility pole fire. About 110 customers were out of power out in Sconset. As far as public facility damage, the town pier came through it the worst again. The floating pier is temporarily out of service. It was broken in 3 places, and 2 of the fingers broke off. Water pipe was broken. It'll probably be out of service for the remainder of the fall while we evaluate the repair options. We have, it was covered by insurance this time. We do have policy. We believe that covers it now. We're going to talk to the different, over the different options for getting it repaired at this point. But you got to remember that part of the dock was built for a lake. It wasn't built for an ocean. And that's why we keep having damage.
Ask if there's a way to get the necessary permits to build it better.
Yeah, well, the problem's not the permits. We're actually in the process. It needs to be dredged out because the fix for that are what they call concrete floats. They're just heavier, more stable. They're anchored down. Those themselves are fairly expensive. They'll probably be, $750,000 or so. But we've just got, I think either we've just gotten or we're in the process of getting the permit to dredge out the shore side of that thing so it could be put in. When we were ready to move forward with it before, they learned that it was too shallow, and at shallow water they would sit on the bottom, which they said would be destructive to them. So it has to be dredged a little bit, but we're working on that, and we'll have more of a plan. But at some point, when we start to get real numbers together, we'll be putting forward through capital programs to see if we can make some improvements. There was a few, Jetty's Beach Concession Shack had a couple of broken windows from flying debris. They had a little leak in the roof. Interior ceiling did collapse from the water. Awning was ripped, and there was wooden fence damaged. Split rail fences all over the island were damaged from fallen trees. Window at Take It or Leave It was broken. And we had numerous roads, gravel and sand roads, that experienced significant potholing. Some of them to the point where emergency response by police and fire is seriously compromised, and DPW is working with us on a priority list so they can get those at least smoothed out so we can get down there if we need to. There was 1 boat sank at Nantucket Harbor. 9 boats sank in the Nantucket Harbor mooring field. 9 boats were on the shore in Monomoy, 3 boats on the shore in Hobart Avenue. No reported seed strandings of scallops. And the Nantucket and Nantucket harbors were closed until today to shellfishing because of the flooding and the boats that had sank. The South Shore is something we need to pay attention to. There was significant erosion along the South Shore. Cisco Beach, Nantucket Beach, the parking lots were impacted by the erosion. I believe the wastewater treatment plant, the bluff out there, lost about 5 foot more there. I mean, that's something we as a town really need to focus on because that's going to become a serious public infrastructure risk here in the near future. So the culture and tourism, we had, and in this report, I forgot, I have one thing. I have the answer to the most asked question of the weekend. You'll know it in a minute. All boat traffic to and from the island ceased from Tuesday, September 19th, did not resume until September 23rd. Preliminary estimates are that Nantucket lodging establishments lost, just south of $500,000 in revenue due to canceled reservations. All tour operators did not operate on Tuesday through Saturday. Several restaurants closed for the duration, and several others that were going to close in the near future just closed early for the rest of the year. Historical Association closed its historic sites, and their visitors were down 43% from the previous year. And the answer to the most asked question, there were 27 weddings on the island last weekend, contrary to the 40, the 45, the 50 that we all hear. So, and I'm not going to tell you where we get that information, but we have pretty good sources. So, and that, there was a lot of effort that was taken, believe it or not, by public safety and the ferries and stuff to try to salvage as much as those things as they could, as far as prioritizing things getting over here, getting the ferries running, getting people on the ferries, et cetera. So, and that's it.
I have one question, not about this past storm, but about the emergency preparation for a more catastrophic event.
Yep.
If we were completely without power, like some of these islands in the Caribbean are for a long time, is there a generator backup on our well pump?
There's several things. There's most of our facilities, critical facilities, have their own generators. The hospital, the police station, the shelters. You saw that 40,000 kilowatt generator sitting at Stop and Shop. That's something new. They can keep food and stuff going. There is a process. National Grid is installing some new generators here on the island as a backup. It probably won't be a full service thing. I don't know that for sure, but they're working on the permitting now to install some generators out their facility in case the power does go down. The likelihood of a power failure is more likely to happen in the winter like it did before when we had the combination of the ice, the flooding, and we had a short here that kicked the generators off at the other end on the mainland. Mm-hmm. The cables are pretty impervious to the storm coming over. It's just the sites where they leave from and where it terminates on the island that is at risk.
Or the poles if they drop.
Well, but those are more isolated. Yeah. And, you know, the National Grid, once the winds are at 35 steady and above, they won't go up and repair them until the storm's done, because it's just too dangerous. The bucket's swinging. However, we've seen them out there using some pretty ingenious wind speed calculations on occasion, so they're pretty helpful. And to their credit, we have regular communication with them throughout every event. And every outage we know about, everyone we know about, we call them. We got a special number that gets around the main switchboard, so we can report things. Whenever they have an outage, they report it to us. They pretty much tell us where they're headed and what their time expectancy is. And they always send over advanced crews depending on the expected needs, but there's generally 1 or 2 tree trim crews and then 3 or 4 bucket crews that come over to supplement what's already on the island.
And to answer your question, there are backup generators on all well pumps.
Yeah, on the wastewater treatment plant. They pre-position them, have them all run, tested, and everything before the storm even impacts us. So, yeah.
I was reading about Puerto Rico today, and there was a couple neighborhoods who were newer neighborhoods, wealthier neighborhoods, and all their lines are buried, and they had power. And the rest of the island was 30, 50-year-old, and it's all knocked down. Yeah. Everything's wiped out. And now the question is, do they put it back up with poles, or now they have the technology to bury it? Are they gonna go through and bury everything, except they have no money to afford to do any of it?
Yep.
So
I think there's arguments both ways. The one, from an emergency management perspective, there's less risk for pole-mounted stuff, but from a outage perspective, when it comes time to fixing something that's out, it's tougher to fix if it's underground because they got to find it and then dig than it is to get lines strung up. So it's kind of a double edge.
So one more question is, with the fuel that we generally have on island, how long can we generate?
Well, we do pretty well there. Ideally, a shelter has 7 days of fuel in their tanks. We have, I believe, 14 days here at the Public Safety Building if the tank's full. We start, and that's one of the things we do go through is on our checklist is to make sure that the tanks are full. One of our most common calls for assistance on the island especially in the winter, when power does go out, people have generators and then they don't fill their tanks with fuel. And we have to work with Harbor Fuel to try to get a tank out to them to get them refilled. But the ones that are critical to our public infrastructure, we generally always make sure they're full. And generally, there's several days. Harbor Fuel, they keep an eye on this stuff. When they know there's a big storm coming, you'll start seeing, 120 hours out, you'll see fuel trucks coming over, and they're topping off their storage capacity. Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next item is the scheduling of the special town elections. So this would be in conjunction with Article 4 of the November 6th special town meeting, which relates to a supplemental appropriation for the fire station. And I think we have pretty well already determined that that article will be subject to a debt exclusion. And the reason for scheduling the special election now is because we are going to need the lead time due to the procurement timing. So the recommended date is Tuesday, November 28th. I've run that date by the people who hold the election, and they've agreed that that can work. So the idea is that you adopt the warrant with the one ballot question on it tonight and schedule that date, and we get it going.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Committee reports?
I have one. The Board of Health met last week. Staff has been developing a strategic plan for the Board of Health with some input from various constituencies. It's been shared with town administration. It's been sent out to the Board of Health members. We're going to be discussing it over the next couple of meetings, and I'll be happy to bring a report back here when it's finalized.
Great. I didn't have so it's not a committee report, but I went to the Vineyard for the Renewable Energy Summit, and it was excellent. I made a couple extra stops. I went to the transfer stations to see what they're doing on the Vineyard. They have, one of them in particular, they've capped the landfill. They have solar panels on it. They also have a dumptique, which is what they call their take it or leave it, but it's very fancy and beautiful. They have also just come off a year-long pilot project study for composting, so taking kitchen waste, anything that's compostable out, and looking at the possibility of private composting. They don't have a biodigester. They're very jealous of ours. I also they had a festival called Living Local Festival, and the Martha's Vineyard Commission was there, and they had a fantastic presentation of some of the different water quality initiatives that the Vineyard's working on, but they also had their town plan in summary format. It was a beautiful format. Nice, yeah. And it's very accessible, and it's probably about 20 pages long, and I would love to see our town plan in a similar format. They're also reviewing their 2009 master plan, and they're essentially going through and giving themselves a scorecard, creating a scorecard, looking at each of the things that were brought up, seeing how they've done in each, and then using that to inform the next version of their master plan. The Renewable Energy Summit, it was myself, Tobias, Lauren Sinatra, and Andrew Vorse. It was a great panel. It was diverse panel speakers. We had some small group discussion possibilities. Some things that I thought were interesting. New Bedford, that gets 40% of their municipal power from solar. On the Vineyard, their Affordable Housing Trust works with a local builder who builds net zero buildings, which means that the total value of the consumption of the building equals the amount of renewable energy on site that's produced. Concord, Mass has passed Article 51, which for them, they've made a commitment to reduce their greenhouse gases, and they've appointed a sustainability officer. So they're looking for renewable, 100% renewable by 2050. And that was it. I think the feeling that Nantucket has some limitations if we were to aim for 100% renewable energy, land being one of them, the way our utilities are, the public utilities, and the way we're different from the mainland with the way we deal with the utilities. But all four of us that were there felt that looking at the Green Communities Act, which provides grants up to $250,000 for communities to put into renewable energy projects, would be something that we should look at again. There's 5 criteria that we would have to meet, but it would be worth looking at again. So, and they have a bowling alley, and it was amazing. And we should have a bowling alley. So that was it.
Anybody else? Well, I went to the State House yesterday with Tucker Holland, Ken Beaugrand, and Beth Ann Meehan to meet with the chair, who it's sort of up to him when the housing bill will go in for a vote. And it seemed like a very good meeting. It was
great.
It was a great discussion. So hopefully that will move forward. I mean, the opponent is the Mass Association of Realtors. And we tried to, as two of us being in the real estate trade, we tried to really address why Nantucket's different and why it is so needed here. And that it will be very unlikely to have a spiral effect, just like our land bank. Applies to us in the vineyard, and no one else has done it. So, then in addition,
is there anything that we can do as a community, or people can do to?
The more people who want to call state representatives and tell them that we need this, the better. So, write letters, make phone calls.
Is that information?
It's really important to have this funding.
Is that on our website? If people want to look, is that easily found of who to contact? And
we can probably make that happen.
But our own reps and senators, they're very much behind.
They're behind it, exactly.
They're really pushing it.
Yeah, it's more reaching out to other.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think, is there anything that, if there's things that people can do, we can do, or individuals can do, what is it? That's all.
I think we can probably point people in the right direction. We also had our second round of interviews for CPC this morning, and just, a continuation of some really worthy projects. Repairing really lovely old paintings at the Athenaeum, continuing rehabbing some of NISDA's buildings out at the farm, out at the art school, and continuing the Boston Hickenbotham House project and Museum of African American History. And there's just a lot of great proposals. Not quite enough money, but hopefully we'll do a good job spreading it out. Anything else?
Libby wants to talk about the Capcom meeting this morning. We've been, haven't gotten into looking at all the capital requests from each department. It's been all summer and all September of working on a new process. And it's been, Stephen Welch has been just killing it on, it's a little over our heads, but we're all starting to get it, trying to rank everything. And it's complicated, but we're figuring it out, and we're going to be ready, I think, in 2 or 3 more weeks once the departments start coming in front of us. So that's been interesting to see that process, being a new member on that board, or on that committee. And then tomorrow we have a joint meeting with Board of Selectmen, FinCom, and Capital Program Committee. That'll be interesting. And we'll be talking about that newer process and explaining it. You'll see what I mean tomorrow.
The application, I just started to read it this afternoon. It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's a change, yeah.
It's going to help in the future, too. We'll be able to look back and,
Well, because once you have it, you're going to have history, which it's going to be good.
That's all I have.
I forgot to mention the American Legion was before us today, too. They're doing one wall of that building at a time, and it's looking really fantastic. Great, so some motion to adjourn?
I'm about to go start talking about real estate stuff, so we should adjourn.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.